Habrish, how Hasina made one-third of constitution unamendable. Her government in 2011, through the Constitution Fifth Amendment Act, had introduced a provision making more than 50 articles of the Constitution unamendable by future parliaments. It was Sheikh Hasina's first term as Prime Minister in 1998 when he appealed division in a verdict explained the limitation of legislative power of a parliament to control the same power of its successors. A legislature cannot by legislation bind its successor, and thus Parliament cannot pass any unamendable or irrepealable law. The Ethics Code had said in the Sharia Rashid Khan versus Bangladesh case verdict, which was also published in BLD, a Bangladesh legal decision. But Hasina, in her second term in 2011, conveniently forgot what the Apex Code said 13 years ago and brought the massive change on the Constitution, making the Constitution unamendable. It sounds absurd, but her government in 2011, the Constitution Fifth Amendment Act, had introduced a provision making more than 50 articles of the Constitution unamendable by the future parliaments. It means about one-third of the country's constitution was made unamendable for future changes, an act of brutal insensitiveness to the people in alignment rights. Thus, the Ninth Parliament, dominated by her party's brute majority, blocked and curtailed the power of its successors to brace change in any of these articles for an indefinite period, which is unprecedented in a democracy. The amendment, which had also abolished the non-partisan caretaker government system that ensured free and fair legal election, triggered widespread criticism. Subverting fundamental rights. Most of the articles which were made unamendable by the Parliament in exercise of its power granted by the Constitution to amend the Constitution deal with the fundamental principles of the state policy, fundamental rights of the citizens of Bangladesh. Making the unamendable means there is no way for further improvement of people's fundamental rights, as all the articles in the chapter of the fundamental rights have been made unamendable, making a despot. How Hasina became all-powerful. For example, education is not a fundamental right of all of Bangladesh. If any future government want to take a fundamental rights as India did, it cannot do that, as the Fifth Amendment has shut the door forever. The Indian Parliament amended the Constitution in 2002 to make education a fundamental right for citizens of India. The provision included in the Constitution says the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14 years in, in such manner as the state may be law determined. Similarly, if any future parliament wants to lift the provision for imposing restriction by any other law on freedom of speech, expression, and freedom of the press, it needs to amend Article 37. But the Article 37 has also been made unamendable. The Constitution's Fifth Amendment Act also introduced a new provision in Part 1 of the Constitution regarding preservation and displaying the portrait of Bangabandhu. The Article 4A says the portrait of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, shall be preserved and displayed at the offices of the President and the Prime Minister, the Speaker, and the Chief Justice in head and branch of all government and semi-government office, autonomous bodies, statutory public authorities, government and non-government educational institutions, embassies, and missions of Bangladesh above. The provision has also been amended by any parliament as it was included in the Part 1 of the Constitution and the whole part has been made unamendable. The power of legislation includes the power of repeal, modification, or alteration of the existing law without contravening the provisions of the Constitution. The Constitution's Fifth Amendment Act is also a piece of legislation the Parliament enacted through its power under Article 142 of the Constitution. Section of the Constitution dwelt in. The Constitution is also known as living document, instrument with keeping conformity with changing situation and needs. But the Hasina government made 1/3 of the constitutions apparently did by shutting the door for changes to grow in a changing situation. Former Attorney General Mahmoudul Islam, in his book Constitutional Law of Bangladesh, writes that the Constitution is an organic instrument. It grows with the passage of time. A constitution is meant to be permanent, but as all changing situation can be invasive, and amendment of the constitution may be necessary to adapt to the future development. Provision is made in the constitution itself to effect changes required by the changing situation. He writes, when a legislature, which is a creature of the Constitution, is given the power of amendment, it is a power given not to be subvert the Constitution, but to make it suitable to changing situation, writes the former Attorney General. But the amendment shut the door for bringing changes in any of the articles dealing with the fundamental principles of the state policy and people's fundamental right to adapt the future developments and to bring any changes required by changing situation. The controversial amendment raised the question: did the Ninth Parliament, dominated Hasina's party, subvert the constitution in the name of amendment?